Hello, OAS family. It is time for another book review, and today we are going to be reviewing a beautiful book called The Series of Chinese Painting Techniques Ink Figure Painting by Hsien Sheng. So, before we get into the specifics of the book, let's get into some general statistics. It's 208 pages long. It is a hardcover book, and it is approximately 8.5 inches wide by 12 inches tall. So this is a very unusual subject. We don't have very many books in our library that focus on this, but we featured a couple paintings from this book in our last email, and we got a lot of inquiries about this book, so we figured that we would do a video book review. So what I really like about this book is it's beautiful, it's coffee table style book, but it's also very solid in its instructional content. So it's not just a pretty book to look at, it is also a functional book. So we don't have very many books that are that combination. I can only really think of one or two that are these sort of hardbound books that are both pretty from like a coffee table sort of standpoint, but also functional from a learning standpoint. So let's just get in there right away and take a look at the content. So, oh yes, and the text of this book is all in Chinese. So you can hear we cover some sort of more historical style figure painting. And now we're getting into some stroke techniques. Some color techniques. Now we're going to show off some different styles of figure painting here. We get into this more sketch style. Back again to the sort of ancient sort of style paintings depicting these historical or mythical characters. This part of the book is still very much delving into the history of figure painting. Now we're getting into some things that look more modern. Things that are looser, more abstract, showing quite a lot of character. Now we get into the book that features a little bit more on instruction. So here we can see some sort of sequential stroke rendering for eyes. And different styles of eyes here on this side. And then different sequential strokes and line works for mouths. And then different styles of mouths. And the same thing with noses and ears. And here's some more line work for different facial elements altogether. And then some examples of how to render hands. So here we get into some illustrative sequential instruction for a final composition. So you can see here we start with the line work, we fill in the details of the line works with some ink shading, and then we move to color. And then some examples of work in that style. Here's another example of a sequential workup. Love these loose strokes that they use for the hat. Just another example of a sequential workup. This is a very wonderful sort of blending of this kind of iconic Hsien style stroke work with some line work, and then some of the coloration too. It's really wonderful. So some more children depictions. And here's a little 3-stage workup for this painting of a woman. And some more examples of paintings in that style. All right. Again, we have this sort of 2-stage. These are almost like drafts or sketches. I wouldn't call this like a precursor to this actual painting, but you can sort of see him kind of sketch out the idea here and then come up with the more finished work here. Same thing here. Almost these sort of sketch ideas would be great just as paintings of themselves, like a different style for sure, but also compelling. Love this. All in ink. Shows really tremendous character with not a lot of strokes. This is very traditional technique, but you know, I think the style of the paintings feels very modern. You can definitely see influence from Western art, but there's no question that the techniques and the materials and the paper are all very Chinese. Dancer here. Really like these where they sort of play with the texture rendering to show these sort of faces that have been aged through hard work. So you can see this book is absolutely chock full of lots of different, very compelling paintings. Each one of them is a study unto itself. Here we have another example of sort of like a sketch that leads into this more final composition. This is another 3-stage workup. Sort of the more simpler line work filled in with the shading ink. Really love the stroke that he used in the background here, and then filled in with the color. This is our first example of a nude piece. I think it might be the only one in the whole book. These female paintings, the faces have a lot of emotion. It's a nice color palette being used here. These sort of more muted colors that don't take you out of the reality of the situation that the subject is in. Love the attitude of this woman here in this painting. Really an amazing amount of content in this book, and in any book, really. I really think that it's kind of strange that we've gotten away from books. You know, for you, there's this idea that, oh, well, all the images are available on the internet. There's millions of images. Why do you need a book? Well, you know, putting together a book is, if any of you have ever put together a book, it's a painstaking editing process, and just putting it all together and making it synergistic. There's just tremendous value in all of that. And then when you really dive into it, you just think, wow, there's just an amazing amount of content that I can get in this format that's so easy for me to sort of delve into and use over and over again. I think much easier than using internet sources, because one, people who put together a book, they're making a commitment to the content. Books are not cheap to put together and publish. And so, you know, when they do a book like this, they oftentimes will care about the content. Now, here's a couple more nudes. And so it's different, you know, because the publishing barrier on the internet is so low. There's just so much content. It's hard to find the good stuff. It really takes a tremendous amount of time. And so, you know, this is going through sort of a multi-stage editorial process. You know, one, the author took the time to put all this stuff into a book, and then the book company took the time to publish it, and then we took the time to import it. So all of those stages, you know, there were people who felt, yeah, this is really worthwhile. This has tremendous value. We're gonna spend some of our effort to get it out to the public. And so in that way, you should really, we have a wonderful library of books. And so, and they're all exclusive to OAS. They're very, very difficult to get anywhere else. So, you know, if you haven't dived into our book library, definitely check it out. And you can always request book reviews, and we're happy to give them. We're getting into a section of the book that has some sort of almost caricatures, which is different than what we've seen so far. So I really like these. They're quite whimsical and really give you a feeling of character in the subjects. So, you know, this is like 3 different styles that are featured. So the more sort of ancient, kind of pictographic, almost like pictures out of a history book, you know, and then sort of more modern impressionistic or just more modern figure studies, and then now we're getting into these almost caricatures. So that's it. Once again, it's Ink and Figure Painting by Wu. So you can find this book at our website at orientalartsupply.com. Thank you very much for listening to this book review and checking it out. Make sure you like and subscribe for more content like this, and we wish you happy painting.